Support provided by Walters, Papillon, Thomas Cullens, LLC, specializing in business litigation and personal injury cases for over 40 years.
Hi everyone, thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you all for taking the time to listen. I have an allotted 25 minutes. I'm going to try and do it as brief as I can and allow everyone to ask questions. What we're going to try and do in this specific presentation is open a whole new world or expand your horizons as to what happens behind the scenes, what is it that an airline does, and most importantly, the unique partnership that we have between Via Airlines and Baton Rouge. Because as I looked, and obviously in preparation for this, we did a little bit of research, and it's amazing to see that Baton Rouge is the 99th largest city in the United States. But if we look at the power that we have in this room, my understanding is that the Rotary Club is the second largest Rotary Club in the world. So if that's the case, it means that there's a lot of individuals here that are united in creating something special. And with what we have here, Via Airlines and Baton Rouge, I think we'd be able to do something fairly unique. So what I'll be talking is a partnership between an airline and a community. What is it that we need to do in order to be successful? I'll describe ourselves, and I'll describe what is it that happens in the whole world, in the aviation industry in general, and what is it that we'd be able to do together in order to create a reality where within 3, 5, or 10 years, Baton Rouge will not only have, right now, all you have is 3, 4 cities that you're flying into. If you look 40 miles to the southeast, there's an airport that has literally over 100 connections, and for no real reason, and a reality that can be changed if we will work together. If you'll work with us, if you'll work with airlines like us, you'd be amazed how quickly a transformation can happen. Briefly about Via Airlines, we are a regional, US regional carrier, celebrated 21 years old, operating 50 passenger ERJ 145, that's the airplane you see on the right, and 30 passenger EMB 120. Just like many other carriers that focus on optimizing costs, we operate a single fleet of Embraers. The EMB 120 has turboprop, it's a jet engine, but with propellers, and jet engines with no propellers on the bigger airplane, but it's literally the same airplane when it comes to maintaining and flying it. We are the first airline in the United States that was certified under the new safety regulations, considered now to be the safest carrier in the United States. What the FAA did after an accident that happened to Colgan Air many, many years ago, they completely changed the way certification and ongoing, the way you maintain the certificate with extremely high, more rigid requirements. And we passed the first carrier in the United States that passed it with flying colors. There are still carriers, some of them you fly today, that were unable to pass that. We also have our flights distributed all over what is called in our world OTAs, online travel agencies, where you go on Expedia, Travelocity, whatnot, and you'll find our flights. And we have a partnership with American Airlines, allowing our passengers to connect wherever they go. If we zoom out for a second and look at the trends in the aviation industry, there's a lot of things that happened that obviously affected this community as well. The first and the most major change is the consolidation in the US aviation industry. There were, just 10 years ago, there were over 116 passenger carrying, wow, is it something I did?
No.
116, this is way too sexy.
I don't think it's that one.
Passenger carrying airlines in the United States, there's less than 20 that are left. So if we look at a reality in a world where there's significantly less organizations that can offer a service. Obviously, the market changes significantly. Not only that, there's less players in the market, but also becoming an airline became significantly more complicated. In the past, it would have been $10–15 million to become an airline like us. Now it literally quadrupled when it comes to the initial investment, let alone the ongoing costs. So you have less players and less organizations that can become a player. And the last part, which I like as an owner of an airline, I don't like as a passenger, where the airline industry, we improved our revenue model, where we now pay for a bag, we pay for a seat, we pay for ridiculous things that the relevant carriers, again, abuse the reality of less players, which one of our models obviously is not to do that, and that's critical when you're partnering with communities like Baton Rouge. The second thing that happened is the mainline carriers shifted to larger airplanes, 100 plus, 130, 150 passengers. That happened because of many reasons. I won't cover it here, but there's regulatory changes, there's pilot shortage, they're focusing more on international flying, and they also have very demanding unions that limit their flexibility to do whatever the big guys want to do. So that led to a point where there's less players, they're operating larger equipment, and that led to a point where now the large airplanes cannot serve smaller communities. We have a term in the industry called PDU, passengers daily each way. That's how many people need to go from one place to another. Say Baton Rouge to Orlando, which is about 85 people a day that need to go back and forth. Right now, what they need to do is connect somewhere, drive, whatnot. But that number, if I'm a carrier that operates an airplane with 130 seats, I cannot approach communities with less than 90 daily seats. So that immediately, if you would have looked at the whole route, the network in the United States, and now you start filtering. Say, I want only, the big carriers operating bigger airplanes. They filter any community that is less than 90 PDU, 90 passengers each way. Guess what? That immediately leads to a point where Baton Rouge is off the map. They cannot do that, and the only thing that they would do is connect Baton Rouge, a community like Baton Rouge, to one of their hubs in a model called hub and spoke. And now, if you need to get somewhere, you'll always connect. Too often, you'll miss the connection. If you want to be efficient, it's going to be a 45-minute connection. Average delay in the industry, by the way, is 45 minutes. So guess what? You're going to miss your connection. So that reality led to what is called in our industry abandoned routes, abandoned communities. There's over 600 abandoned routes in the United States today because of that transition. We all know that air transportation has significant impact. There's a lot of studies that shows how significant an airport is to a community, how significant air transportation is to a community, all the way from direct impact to indirect impact. Direct impact would be the vendors that provide fuel, for example, to our airplanes that will be here. Indirect would be if we're going to hire 10, 15 people, now they're going to buy more groceries and whatnot. So there's a lot of activities. Air transportation is the number one in the world, number one industry when it comes to market stimulation. There's $899 trillion around this industry. And if done correctly, and that's why I started initially with the unique connection, even though Baton Rouge is number 99 in the US, the power that you guys have, that everyone in this room has to create a unique opportunity is mind-boggling. As we select, again, we operate smaller airplanes. We focus on the niche in the US is about $3 billion a year. That's our niche. That's what we're focused on. And as crazy as it might sound, in our industry, it's referred to as a small niche. So when we go and select a route, the first thing is we want to make sure that it's not served. Unfortunately, or fortunately for us, unfortunately for many communities, there's a lot of unserved markets right now. The second is we focus on the PIDU, between 30 and 90. We want to make sure that there's enough traffic. We also want to make sure that there isn't too much traffic, because at that point, it might be relevant for the big guys one day to go and start eating it. The third parameter is 250 to 700 miles. That's just to make sure that the travel is comfortable between anywhere between 30-minute flight to an hour and a half. That's our sweet spot. And the last, which is the most critical one, and I can attest that Baton Rouge is very strong, both the airport itself, the CVB, and all of the organizations around the airport prove to us that there is strong community support. When we go and launch a route, we want to make sure that there's a lot of support from the businesses, from the organizations, marketing support, because if it's going to be a silent entry to the marketplace, as you'll see in a second, it's also going to be a quick departure from a marketplace. That's just our reality. We know that whenever we launch a route, we're going to lose. In the first 6 months, we lose about $1 million. Not a lot of money, but significant enough. It's a lot of money, but the point is that, and I'll explain the sentence, every dollar counts, don't get me wrong. But you recoup that in about 6 to 9 months. So anyone here that is in the finance industry understands that if you have a model where within a year you break even, and now you continue to make money, it's valid. The point is that if you bleed money too quickly, it's an alarming sign that you won't be able to recoup later. That's why the exit is potentially very quick. So we're looking for communities that support, that care, that wants and understands that aviation and air service is critical to the community, especially what we're doing here. We're launching 2 routes at the same time. We need community that provides marketing funds, and it's not only about the dollars. It's also about people here that go talk to the media and share their thoughts with the media and make sure that the attention span, if I'm sure that there is a couple of people here with Facebook, if as a result of this session and future sessions, when the network is launched, network for us is the routes, everyone will make a noise around it. People that thought that they're going to fly through Atlanta, get stuck there or whatnot, will say, hey, I can fly in an hour and 20 minutes, be in Orlando. That's what we need in order to launch it successfully. And community leaders that show vested interest in the air service. If the mayor, if the CEOs, the leaders of the community, when they have an opportunity, they make sure that there's an article about it, you'll be amazed how much traction it creates fairly quickly. And again, of course, in Baton Rouge, you can drive, you can fly indirect, you can fly from another airport. If you would have looked, we call it leakage. If you would have looked at your leakage report, you'll be amazed how many people drive and how much money this community is losing because of the lack of service. This is our current network, and obviously Baton Rouge in the center is also very special to us because this is the first connection between our 2 major hubs. We're operating out of Austin as our primary hub, out of Orlando as number 2, and Charlotte. Another hub is going to be announced in November, and if we'll be successful with this launch, you're going to get another connection to a very important city. Just quickly, just to understand things that happen in the marketplace and what is it that our partnership, I'm your partner. Via Airlines is Baton Rouge, is a partner with Baton Rouge. We are competing in worlds, including in Via, on kind of the network planning department. This is Pittsburgh market today. This is Pittsburgh just 7 years ago. 42 cities that they need 1 million people that are unserved. For us, again, $154 million of annual income. Memphis. This is Memphis today. This is Memphis, that's 6 years ago. And obviously, Baton Rouge was a dot there. For us, again, about $250 million of revenue. This is Cincinnati. Cincinnati about 8 years ago. Significant market. Why am I showing this? Just to understand how many markets, including significant cities, have lost their service. And we need to make sure that this partnership will be strong enough that all of these would say, yeah, that's all nice and dandy, but it's better to add. Baton Rouge already proved that if they have a specific city pair, if there's, let's say, a strong entity, business entity that just needs service between two cities from Baton Rouge, with an airline like ours, it's super simple to go sit and say, you know what? You guys are going to buy the 15 seats every 3 days, whatever it is. We have, again, it was described as if I'm the chairman, Irit is the CEO. She's really the boss. She runs everything. I just talk. So our strategy is, and what we're trying to do for any community is we want to improve travel experience. We want to bring the golden age of aviation where when you boarded an airplane, people actually smiled at you and not just shoved you to your seat. We have, and our statement is, we don't have passengers, we have guests. And we have Robert here, he's the director of ground operations. And under him, there's the whole team that is responsible, the guest satisfaction team. Those that sell you or work with you to check in, board the plane or the call center. And don't get me wrong, we're not perfect. No airline is perfect, it's impossible. If you look at the machine, it is an unbelievable machine. If you'll ever, and all of you are invited to see our headquarters in order to see what an SOC looks like, the Systems Operations Center. Think of a machine where an airplane lands. For us, more than 6 minutes is a delay. So in a rhythm of that is calculated by the minute, you have an airplane that lands, fueled, deplaned, implaned, all of the support staff, the pilots get their flight plan, mechanics go and handle. Sometimes you won't even know that the airplane is being boarded, and at the same time we change a tire on it just because of whatever regular inspections that are happening. So our challenge is to control the growth, target 100 communities by 2020. By 2025, be the largest regional carrier operating 30 and 50 passenger airplanes. As was mentioned, the airlines and the leadership team, we're not, again, I feel as if I'm a kid, but we're not kids. We've done it. We know how to create companies. I'm also a captain in the airline, and Irit is a flight attendant in the airline. She thinks she's the captain, by the way. When we analyze the market, and I'll just accelerate a bit, it's important to understand how we look at it. There's an industry standard. The dotted line that you see is industry standard. Literally, every time you launch a route, the number of weeks from the announcement, it might move a little bit, but that's the curve that we see. And then every week we analyze, where are we compared to the booking curve? Are we there? Are we not? And what you see here, that's sample curves. That's not real curves, where the green line represents a community that we're probably going to depart from after 6-9 months. We never call it quits too early unless we feel that the community support is not there. We care more about the community support than the booking curves, just to understand that. The blue line, the one that jumps up, that's a community that started slow and then reacted, did the right thing, and created enough media buzz. And the line in the center is our average. In fact, these are all of the routes. That's an example just to see. We've launched 14 routes in the last 6 months, and that's where the booking curves are. Luckily for us, none of them are below the booking curves. One of them significantly spiked after the community did what I have no doubt you guys will do as well. That's where we want to be. What can you do? I mentioned media, bulk purchases. If there's an organization here that sends 50 of their employees, 10 of their employees for fun somewhere, this is the time to do an Employee of the Month award, send them to Orlando on Via Airlines. I'm not kidding, you'll be amazed. It sounds like a joke, but there's so many organizations that say, hey, you know what, we're talking about $200 round trip. There are no prices like this in the industry, and I'm saying this because the prices will not stay like that for long. We cannot. But this is our investment in making sure we're stimulating the market. You as the community leaders must stimulate the market as well. You need to promote Orlando, in Orlando and Austin. There's a lot of things that can be done and a lot of attractions. People in Orlando and Austin know New Orleans. They don't know enough about Baton Rouge, and they need to. This is where you go and spend a little bit of money on the other side, and the returns are mind-boggling if you look at the economical impact. The early days are the most critical days. This is where we analyze, this is where you create the initial momentum, and this is what I'm hoping that you'll do. In local businesses, all of you, need to commit to no leakage. The airport is here, and I can tell you that we've seen airports that transposed a whole community just by becoming the pillar and the center of the growth. To conclude, there is a significant market need in Baton Rouge. We as the carrier are uniquely positioned. Baton Rouge is the center of our focus. And Baton Rouge, on the flip side, is the perfect destination, both origin and destination. We have proven past record and base for future growth. There's strong leadership on both sides. And as long as we'll focus on community airline partnership, we'll be successful.
Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
When are you flying now to those locations?
So the question was, are we flying? I got an instruction to repeat the questions, Jesse. So the question was, I read it. See? Are we flying right now? We've announced the service. We're selling tickets. The first flight is September 13th. And that's when the service is launched. Right now, Baton Rouge is below the booking curves, by the way. After this session, it's going to change.
I have a question. When you did your market analysis, did you consider Houston Hobby as the destination?
First of all, I'm not network planning, but we did run an analysis. I can tell you that it was one of the destinations, but not even close when it comes to the potential PDUs between compared to Austin and Orlando. And I'd be more than happy to, I just don't have the numbers, to tell you where is it on the list.
Well, I know that you're focused on places where there's not already a service. And of course there is service from between Baton Rouge and Intercontinental Airport. But the big traffic from this area to Houston is headed for the southern part of Houston, where the petrochemical corridor is, that matches up with the petrochemical corridor here. So you may not be seeing how much of the traffic is actually headed there that's currently flying from New Orleans, because Southwest will fly to the Hobby. So I would encourage you to look at that as a very promising market.
And we'll definitely do that with the airport. That's a very important feedback. Thank you. Please.
How much knee room do you have?
I don't have that problem.
How much knee room is there between
So,
the seats?
our advantage, it's what is considered now in the industry, which is crazy, but that's a whole different. So it's economy plus spacing. All of our airplanes are the level of economy plus, which is 31 inches. But it's not by choice. That's the airplanes that we acquired.
Why can we fly in Europe so much cheaper than the United States? I can get a flight from London to Rome for $100, and I can't get a flight to Austin unless I fly E for less than $300.
Yeah. So the cost, we have an interesting, there's a whole formula. You fly on a bigger airplane, and the cost per seat per mile drops exponentially for us. So if you look at an ERJ, we operate a 50-passenger ERJ. The cost roughly is $3,000 an hour. This is direct operating cost. So that means that my cost, again, there's how fast do we go and so on. But the point is, look at it as my cost is $60 for an hour flight, just to make it easy. The equivalent, because the airplane is larger, the airplanes are way more efficient once they get to cruise. Their cost is going to be about 1/3 of our cost of the short haul. So the cost per seat per mile is 1/3 of the short haul. The other thing is you have less options, so we can rape you. I'm gonna get kicked out now, right?
Any other questions?
Is there a specific number of flights that y'all need to generate out of here? You talk about the importance of the commitment. What are the specific numbers you need to be able to stay?
So the way we analyze it is per city pair. We analyze it weekly, but we just need that the flight itself will be profitable, or the average flight will be profitable. We're starting with a total of 5 turns, 2 to Orlando and 3 to Austin, and the intent is to get to daily service. So the quicker we'll fill these specific routes, it's adding more turns during the week, and as soon as that's successful, which we're doing in other markets, you add more rotations a day.
What is your percentage of on-time arrivals and so forth?
So it actually depends on the market itself. Our completion rate right now is, and we count the controllables, is a little over 98.9%. So the on-time departures will depend on the markets, but I can tell you that we're top tier of the industry. And why am I saying that? I'll give you an example. And Robert can probably describe it better. We had was it yesterday with the lady that we waited for? 2 days ago. So out of Sanford, and by the way, the way it works, if you start with a delay in the morning, you're going to be delayed the whole day. So a single delay, because the airplane doesn't just fly this route, the airplane flies from here and then Jackson and then multiple routes. So we had a lady on the first flight of the day that showed up 7:25 at the airport for a 7:45 departure. A regular airline would have left. We didn't. We waited for her, and we took a 20-minute delay that affected quite a few. We closed the gap during the day. But we do that because she's our guest. She's not our passenger. Is it a delay? Yes, it is. And it hit our statistics quite, but it did focus on what we are.
Your loyalty program, is that like a mileage that's affiliated with American Airlines? I saw that on the slide.
Yeah. So first of all, I don't think the mic worked. So, but so the question was about our frequent flyer program. We don't have one. So it's not affiliated. If you book with American, you can book our flights on American. You will get your miles on their segments. But we don't have a frequent traveler program yet. So.
Support provided by Walters, Papillon, Thomas Collins, LLC, specializing in business litigation and personal injury cases for over 40 years.